Hello and welcome to the first lesson of our Counterpoint course. So, today I will give you a brief interview about the part one of this course because our course divided for three parts. The first part called the basics. The first section of this course, chapter 1 to 4, covers music theory and counterpoint basics. Chapter 1 presents musical texture and consonance versus dissonance in relation to intervals, melodies, chords, and non-chord tunes. Chapter 2 examines the musical form and introduction to writing two-voice counterpoint. Chapter 3 explores the construction of melodies and how to manipulate the motif within the melodic line to more effectively express musical ideas. Chapter 4 explains how to create and use the symbol canon as a stand-alone technique and in a counterpuntal texture. For today's lesson number 1, we will talk for two parts. First part, it's the overview. Second part, we will talk about music texture. So, in the beginning, what is counterpoint? Simply, counterpoint is two or more melodic lines working together to create music. It could be 2, 3, 4, or 5 lines working together or weaving together to create counterpuntal music. And when we say counterpuntal music, we mean music created using counterpoint. So, when we think in counterpoint, we always think horizontally. We didn't think vertically at all. We didn't care about chords. We didn't think about harmony or chords. We just think horizontally. So, let's say if we have more than 2 lines, each of the melodic lines, if it's in a treble or bass and every line in between, work independently as a melodies well as together harmonically. Okay, and now we say harmonically, and I said we didn't think about chords, but still work harmonically. So, when we have melodies in our writing, we create some texture in our music. And we have 3 types for now of texture, and we will go, of course, more advanced in the future for more than 3 types of texture. But for today, we will explain 3 types of texture. First one, the polyphony or polyphony and counterpoint have been around for about 1,000 years and are at the root of melody and harmony in Western music. And you can go, of course, here and download this file and read more about it. But as such, understanding counterpoint is as important to contemporary music as it's to music history. In this course, we will study contemporary and traditional repertoire and applications that demonstrate power and effectiveness as a creative technique. So, first thing we want to learn before dive on counterpoint, we want to learn how to identify the textures. Okay, texture is used to describe the relative thickness or thinness of a musical sound. Like the texture of fabric, musical texture can be raw or smooth, simple or complex, dense or sparse. So here are 3 basic musical texture, only one of which includes counterpoint. So first one, it's monophony, is also melody. When we say monophony is a solo melody, a single line for music and the simplest of a music texture. And from the Greek, the polyphony meaning monophony meaning mono meaning one, and phony meaning sound or voice. So this is about the first type of texture, the monophony texture. So it's just one line of music. As we can hear or see here, we will listen to this example, and I will upload the MP3 file for this example. If you look to this example, the blues example, this is blues melody. It's just one line of music, just one voice, one sound, one line. We don't have more lines or any chord progression or anything working with this line. So this line is monophony or monophonic line because it's just one melody. So if you move to the second example here, also the same one. Okay, so it's also monophony music because we have one melody, one line. We didn't have more than this, so it's still monophony. If we go more, we will get a new type of texture. It's called homophony. Homophony is a melody with a chord. When we have a melody with chord progression, as in a song harmonized melody. So if you have a melody with chord progression, we will call it a homophony. But here, the chords do not stand on their own as independent melodies, but are heard as shapes supporting or harmonizing the single melody. And here's the difference between harmony writing and counterpoint writing. When we write counterpoint music, let's say we have two line counterpointal, one line for melody and another line for counterpoint. So each line will be an independent line and as a one melody. So you will have two melodies working together, and the two melodies stand on its own, so on their own as an independent melodies. But in homophony music, the chord will be heard as a shape supporting or harmonizing our melody. Okay, and we will go also and listen and download the MP3 file, listen to this example. If you look here, we have a melody, a main melody, one melody, and here we have an accompaniment, a chord progression that work and support this melody. So this type of texture called homophony. Now, I will explain more here and stop here in homophony, because let's imagine we have a melody or a singer singing with a guitar and he playing a rhythm with chord progression, just one pattern, and he's singing with this pattern. So when we have just chord progression with one pattern, like strumming on guitar, and we didn't change the pattern, and we harmonize the melody with this chord and this pattern, here the texture will be changed. Okay, we will not call the texture as a homophony. Why? Because we have same pattern all the time, playing the chord progression with the same rhythmic pattern, and we will call it a heterophonic. And we will go more in the future and explain a lot about heterophonic. And when we have same figure or same rhythmic pattern, playing a chord progression with a melody will be a heterophonic. But if we have a chord progression that harmonize our melody, but we change from time to time our patterns and our figures, it will be homophony, but will still a homophony and will still heard as a shape supporting our melody. Now, if we go to the most important one in this course, the polyphony. Polyphony is more than one melody happening at the same time. Okay, so the three parts counterpointal texture in next example contain two treble melodies, as you see here, and one bass melody that all work together and create beautiful harmonize, while at the same time maintaining their melodic independence from each other. Let's just go and look to this example here. If you can see, I have one line, the second line, and the third line, two in a treble clef and one in the bass clef. if you look here, or if you played or heard each line as an independent line, you will hear a melody. Here one an independence melody, and here another independence melody, and here another one. So what we have here, we have like three melodies that work together and waving together, and each one is an independent melody. Okay, so this is the meaning of polyphony. And from Greek, poly, it's meaning many, and phony, sound or voice. So what we have here, many voices, many line, many melodic line that working together. So for now, just we have a three type of textures, and we add the fourth. Just we talked a bit about the fourth one, and as we said, if we have a chord progression that harmonize or support our melody, and we are using the same pattern in the whole song, we will call it heterophony music. And there is some musician will call it obbligato. Okay, so but if we have a chord progression that support our melody, but we change the shape of our pattern or our figure from time to time, will be homophony texture. And the fifth one, this is also very important texture, and we will use it a lot in, in the future lessons, the complex texture. Now, what's the complex texture? Complex texture is a texture that use two types of texture or more. For example, if I have a melody and I harmonize this melody by a chord progression, and also I will write another line, another counter melody to my main melody or my main theme, it will be a complex texture. Why? Because we have, or we using two texture together. It will work. It will be good. We can use polyphony and homophony at the same times in our piece. And this is the most important step in orchestration and arranging. If you look for an effective orchestration, you need to use these counter melodies a lot. And by this way, we arrange or we orchestrate our music. When sometimes we wrote a melody, let's say we wrote the melody and we harmonize it and we wrote our chord samples above the melody. And when we orchestrate, we don't need to voice your chord always. Sometimes you can voice and write a pattern or figure that harmonize or support your melody. But you can't just write a counterpointal line or a counter melody line to harmonize or to weave with your first melody at the same time, and you will have a polyphony writing. And of course, you can add your harmony or your chord progression below the counter melody. And from now, let's just take this complex texture and go more deeply in this texture. Keep in mind when you arrange your music or when you orchestrate your music, each arrangement or each great melody should have a three parts. What I mean by three parts, just as a three section of a music or a three section of instruments or a three section of melodies, we will call this foreground, midground, and background. So in our foreground, we will write our melody. In the midground, we write our counter melody, and in the background, we write our harmonic or chord progression. So if you wrote this type of texture, if you wrote a melody, a counter melody, and a chord progression or foreground, midground, background, you will get a complex texture. And all great music or great musicians use this a lot. Now, if I wrote my first section of a music, my piece, as a homophony texture, and my second section of a music, I decide to write a polyphony music. Always here, we use the complex texture, but we use in each section an independent texture. Just in the first section, I used homophony, and in the second section, I used polyphony. It will work. And sometimes you can change your texture from bar to bar, like to write first 2 bar or first 3 bars, or your first phrase as a homophony and your second phrase as a polyphony. Okay? And of course, you can use monophonic music, like just one line. If you, for example, let's say you want to write just an introduction to your piece using just one melody, working alone, you can. Sometimes you can use the monophonic music in your transition section or interlude. You can put it. It's work very well. All of this texture work very well, but the most important one for our course is the polyphony one. That it's meaning when we use more than one line or more than two independent melody weaving together. Keep in mind always you need to think horizontally. Don't think vertically at all when you write counter melody or counterpoint music. Always think horizontally. And when you think horizontally, let's look at this example here. What you see here, the main melody starts with a rest, 2-beat rest, following by 1-beat rest, and the melody start here. And when this guy here in the beginning, in the first 3 beat, is silent, this one start talking. And when this was talking, this was silent. And this one start talking when this is just sustained. What we observe here, we need to make our counters melodies making a conversation. It's not necessary to work all the time or most often just together at the same time. We need to take some rest here and some rest here. This one talking, this one stop talking, as 2-person or 3-person talking together. When one is talking, the second one will be silent and listening to him. So keep in mind, think horizontally and make a conversation in your writing. So that's it for this today, for the texture and for the overview. Please go and download this PDF file, read this PDF file and read it. And next lesson we will go and talk about consonance versus dissonance and start thinking horizontally like this and start writing some polyphony music. And that's it for today's lesson, and see you in the next lesson.